Hey, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today is a very special episode. So I have a return guest, Benjamin Inman, on the line, who's a managing member over at Inman Equities. And he's also here because we just released a new book together, so Money Matters Real Estate Edition Volume 2, where Benjamin wrote a chapter on syndication, and we're going to get into that amongst some other things. So, but first off, Benjamin, welcome back to the show.
I appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, so I'm excited to get into this chapter in your writing. So all on syndication, and a couple of quick things that I learned a lot about, I'll just say going through it, was number one, the benefits of a pitch book. We're going to get into that today because I haven't seen anybody lay it out quite as nicely as you did there, and some other things. But before we get into that in your writing, I do want to not assume that all of our new listeners caught your first episode. So first off, tell us a little bit more about what you're up to over at Inman Equities, please.
Yeah, so, Inman Equities, we owners and operators of multifamily properties throughout the Southeast, key markets that we focus in on, but, we purchase anything from anywhere from 50 units up to 300 units per property. We acquire portfolios at times if it makes sense. So, we're still in acquisition mode. Although we are in the middle of this corona thing at the moment, we're still active, selectively active, I guess I should say. We're just as much focused on the operation side at this point, just to kind of get us through to the other side of this thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to get into the chapter. So first off, let's just start kind of at the beginning. And to the listeners, we're not going to have time to go through the whole chapter today or the whole book. But that being said, why? Because we want you to go out and buy that book. So there's going to be a link in the show notes. We definitely sell books. So pick up a copy because I want you to catch all of Benjamin's writing in this. But let's just start off from the basics. So why syndication? So what has that meant for you?
So syndication is great. It allows you to scale. I mean, it's not for everybody because there are people out there that prefer to go it alone. But for those that want to diversify their portfolio and scale with the power of partnerships, syndication makes a ton of sense because not only are you leveraging the power of your equity, but also your LP equities or your LP investors, rather, to invest their capital into your deals. It really helps you to buy a lot more property and to scale much faster.
So I'm a fan of that, and again, like you said, everybody chooses what they want to do, right? So meaning some people don't want to scale in the same way. Some people want to acquire a property or two here and there, but for like really scaling and doing some things, that's the key. And just to give people an idea that you're not just making this up, do you care to share just a little bit of maybe your history and what you've done in syndication? Don't have to go too far into it, but just to let them know that you are the guy to be talking about this. That's all.
Yeah, so 2.5 years ago, I left Cardone Capital. After I helped Grant build that company out a little bit, I decided to leave and start my own shop. That was 2 years ago. I went from 0 units to 2,323 units in 24 months. And that, just to put a dollar value on that, it's $192 million. And so we were roughly acquiring almost 12 properties a year, which equals to one multifamily property a month. That we were just rapid fire. I mean, it was a lot of work. It's still a lot of work, but we were just grinding it out and hustling hard, and it worked.
That's unbelievable, first of all. Almost $200 million in freaking 24 months. Unbelievable. So that being said, I had to give. I hate to call you out like that, but I had to give you some context to the listeners to know why you were chosen to write this chapter. Like you're not just saying it, like you're doing it. You live it. So let's get into, and that's why I'm excited to get into the next part that you write about in your chapter. So the pitch book. First, define it, and then give us some of your thought processes on it that you go through.
Yeah. So really, a pitch book is really nothing more than an executive summary, if you want to call it that, of the deal that you are pitching specifically, as well as a brief history of your past as an owner-operator or your past if you have not yet bought your first deal. It's just a kind of a snapshot of why you're qualified to do what it is that you want to do. But it also gives a snapshot of the team members that are at the table. It can go into specifics on the deal itself. It can go, you can keep it very macro, which I recommend keeping it macro on a one sheet, and then going into further micro level detail if that's what you feel like you want to do. But I'd put that in the appendix or something, because not only people don't want to be bogged down with that kind of information, but there are guys out there that do like that information. So sometimes it's just good to include, all the information into a pitch book. But really, at the end of the day, it'll contain also pictures of the deal that you're pitching itself, the deal specific, the deals that you have in your portfolio now. It'll have pictures of those properties, little snapshots of each of those. No detail, because that's not what the pitch book about. You're pitching a specific deal, or if you don't have a specific deal yet, then you're pitching to a group of investors to hopefully get some attention and get some motivation behind you. So when you do identify an asset, ideally you'll have investors sitting on the sideline ready to go. So a pitch book is as vast as you want it to be, or it can be as summarized as you want it to be. There really is no hard and fast rule on what a specific pitch book is, because it can contain multiple things.
I love that, and I'm gonna read this directly from the chapter, because I learned a lot, and I feel like I've been around real estate just a little, but I never thought of some of these other nuances that you could only learn at from being in your shoes. And I never thought about this. I'm like, because even back in the day when I was, doing little deals or trying to do little deals, like when I was just getting started, because I didn't have a pitch book or any type of system, I completely missed out on this. So you wrote, a pitch book helps you continue building your investor database. It's never too early to build out your relationship database of investors. Regardless if you currently have a deal under contract or not, I recommend continuing to build out your investor database before, during, and after your deal. As you acquire more properties, continue to update your pitch book, and with your current owned assets, it'll serve to continue adding to your credibility and building your track record. And I was like, that right there, that one little paragraph, that's the difference between a novice and a professional. Like, that's the 100%. Difference between a professional, like, who builds a business over the long haul. Like, you can't do the kind of numbers you're doing without doing these little things.
No, and I'll add some perspective to that. So, when I was first starting out and raising capital, it was to the point where we started, it was like 60 days to raise like $1 million, right? I mean, it'd take us almost to the week of closing before we had the final dollars wired into the account. And that's stressful for anybody, right? And so in the beginning,
I'm stressed just hearing you say it. I'm stressed just hearing you say it.
I won't tell you. I've got another story that would stress me out just thinking about it, and it's way past us now. But the importance of that little snippet that you pointed out is this. So fast forward from where we started to where it is now. So our last deal that we acquired at the end of November, it was a $3 million raise, and we raised that money in a week.
Wow.
So compare that story to the very beginning, where it took 60 days or 2 months to raise $1 million. Now we could raise $3 million in a week. And that's all because I utilized those principles and really put everything into play, because, still to this day where we are now, we are still building out our investor database for that very reason, to the point to where even in the midst of the market where we are in now, we have a deal under contract that we're closing on in 30 days, and I have to turn away investors because I'm overcommitted on the deal already, and we're still like 30 days away from closing it. And that makes you sleep good at night. And that's why it's so important that you picked out that little snippet in the chapter. Mm-hmm. That's why that snippet is so important, because believe me, you get out what you put in. So the more work you put into making that pitch book, and the more you work that pitch book, with your investors, and never stop networking and keep building, man, it puts you in a good position, because now I can breathe a lot better than I did when I first started, because I can raise capital a lot faster now than, in the beginning.
Yeah, I totally, and if I was like, a lot of people like, write in other things like this, and that one paragraph though, that's the one that hit home when I was like, man, and I never, I went a different route in finance, so I never went into really syndication, but I remember even when I was thinking that route, this is like right out of college, this is like I'm first deal or second deal, so I'll just put it in perspective, this is like the very beginning, and I was thinking back, and I'm like, man, all those people I talked to throughout the years and trying to put together little deals or trying to make it bigger, this, that, like I lost touch with all of them. I don't know who they are, this, that, whatever, but they're all still investors. They're all still there. I don't remember their names. They don't remember mine, and that's a problem. if I wanted to raise money, that is, that would be a problem, right? So for the young investors or even the more seasoned investors out there that are listening, don't underestimate like this, what Benjamin wrote in the book. And he's a living proof of what happens when you do these systems over time and you keep building your track record and everything else you're doing. I love it, man.
Absolutely.
So Benjamin, I can go over this with you all day long once we really get into it, but we're about running out of time here. Last two questions, if you will. Number one. What is the right type of investor and or person to contact Inman Equities that you typically like to work with? Question number one. And number two, how do they reach out?
Yeah, okay. So question number one. So I really like working with the professionals that are, doctors, lawyers, dentists, people that have full-time jobs that make good income, that have money to invest, but are too busy with their practice or whatever their career is to really break away from that to put into finding properties, because it is a full-time job. And so, this is all I do. I eat, breathe, and sleep this industry, probably more than most, because I'm passionate about it. I've always been passionate about it. And so for me, that's why I like those type of investors. But on the other hand, I also have investors that have sold, major beverage companies that have repeatedly invested with me on numerous deals. So I like those guys too. But, look, $8 is the same value in the hands of, someone that's, owns a landscape company or rides a lawnmower, as a career, or someone that's a doctor or lawyer. Their money is the same value, right? And so we'll work with any investor, but, you asked me to specifically point it out, so that's the ones that I specifically pointed out. And as far as them being able to get in touch with me, so we're on all the social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, at Inman Equities. So it has just the same username for every one of those platforms, at Inman Equities. But you can also reach me my email at binman@inmanequities.com. They can also find us online on our website at inmanequities.com. And as always, I'm the crazy guy that always tells people you can call me or text me on my personal cell at 615-513-3088 anytime. Just like anybody else building a company, you cannot take a break. It's a full-time job. I feel like I don't sleep sometimes, so if somebody texts me at 10 o'clock at night, they may get an answer.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know you don't sleep. I don't know how you do it, but I do know how you do it. It's called freaking raising hundreds of millions of dollars in a couple of years. That's how you do it. You aren't sleeping. You get sleep next lifetime, Benjamin. I'm not worried about you. Well, hey, just wanted to say thanks again for coming back in the show, and it was an honor to publish your work. I know that a lot of the people, I got a lot out of reading it, and I learned a lot, so I'm sure our readers will also, so thank you for that. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Don't forget, go check out that book. We'll have a link in the show notes. Pick it up. You definitely want to get the rest of what Benjamin wrote in there. And also subscribe to the podcast if you're a first-time listener. We want you to come back and listen to us some more and get some more out of this. So, Benjamin, thanks again for coming back on the show.